Started on your presentation. Oh, we got to read the legal notice. I forgot.
This meeting will be conducted by audio and video conference without a physically present quorum of the Rock Island City Council due to the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 public health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. For this reason, alderpersons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall, and physical public attendance at City Hall may be limited. This meeting can be viewed live on Channel 9 for Mediacom customers living in Rock Island or on the city's YouTube channel.
Thank you very much. We need to do a roll call.
Alderman Robinson, absent. Alderman Hurt, absent. Alderwoman Gilbert,
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Here.
Alderman Parker, absent. Alderman Poulos,
Here.
Alderman Geenan,
Present.
and Mayor Toms.
Here. Very good. Now, Mr. Bill Nelson.
Thank you. I'm here to give a little bit of a report on the Park and Recreation Foundation. And some of you may not be aware of the Park and Rec Foundation. We are a small but mighty group of 8 and a volunteer executive director. In recent years, we've raised nearly $100,000 from a variety of things, including wine tasting dinners, golf tournaments, birdies for charity, bequests, and other smaller events to support parks and recreation in Rock Island. Our primary goal has been to provide financial assistance to youth who are signing up for park and rec programs. As the executive director for the Rock Island Park Foundation, I have a unique perspective that comes from being the past director here in Rock Island. As a result, I'm not sure that our community recognizes how special and unique our park system is. Across the nation, park and recreation is considered to be a primary responsibility of municipalities and cities, the same as libraries, public works, police, and fire services. In comparison with other cities and towns across the nation, our community provides parks and playgrounds close to the national average of parks and playgrounds per 1,000 citizens. We do have some park deserts within the city, particularly in areas south of 18th Avenue. This should be of some concern as the collection of property tax from these households tends to be a bit on the higher side of the average tax bill. However, the Park and Recreation Department is glaringly different on the percentage of tax support versus fees in comparison with the rest of the country. On a national average, 77% of the Park and Recreation Department's budgets are covered by tax support. In Rock Island, it's the opposite, with approximately 30% from taxes and 70% of the budget coming from fees. This is a significant difference in how the department is able to carry out the city's mission of providing quality park and recreation services to its citizens. Park and recreation often sets the stage for how a city is viewed by those outside of its boundaries. Think of New York City without Central Park, Chicago without Grant Park, or San Antonio without the Riverwalk. While those are grand examples, think of Rock Island without Longview, Lincoln, or Schwiebert Park. When virtually half of the attendants at Whitewater Junction Aquatic Center, Saukey, and Highland Springs are guests from outside our city borders, it speaks volumes about the importance of these facilities and how people view our city. It should also be noted that without attendance from those outside the city limits, our community would not have the ability to support these facilities. With revenue being a primary budgetary concern for park and recreation and its operation, there has been a need to increase fees to offset operational costs. As a result, pricing begins to limit access for some families, particularly youth. In an effort to help offset the loss of access for youth in particular, the Park and Recreation Board formed the Park and Recreation Foundation in July of 2015. Updates to the bylaws and formalized board activity began in 2017 and 2018. As the foundation grew, it formed the mission statement and developed subcommittees to carry out future goals for the group. The mission of the Park and Recreation Foundation is to enhance the quality of park and recreation experiences through financial and volunteer support. The bylaws identified the activities the foundation would support and those that it would not. The primary goal is the need to provide financial assistance for youth so they may participate in various park and rec programs, such as swim lessons, camp programs, or sport leagues. Any opportunity for youth to have a positive experience with another adult is critical for leading them away from negative choices. This is clearly in line with the United Way's goal of 40 developmental assets for youth. Another goal is to support new programs for a limited time. An example could include the purchase of equipment to begin a youth sport program, or special equipment needed to begin a new adult program. The expectation is that the program would become self-sustaining after the initial startup. Playgrounds are another identified effort, primarily to upgrade or replace broken or worn-out equipment. Recently, the foundation has been purchasing expression swings that would enable toddlers to face their parent and swing together on a swing set. Special events that encourage family participation is another goal of the foundation. With heavy demands for parents, activities that enable families to spend time together are critical for the health of our community. The foundation has been a supporter for movies in the park and will continue to consider requests for other family-oriented events. The foundation will also consider fundraising for new construction, equipment, or upgrade to a facility that would result in an improved service. The foundation has provided funding for the cooperative purchase of a transport van used by Park and Recreation and the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for the First Tee program. The current project is obtaining funds for the clubhouse at Highland Springs that will expand the First Tee program here in Rock Island. However, the foundation will not fund maintenance or staffing of park and recreation programs, as that is the responsibility of the city and the policy decisions of the City Council. A significant concern is the need to increase the support for seasonal and part-time positions of the department. These service providers represent the largest percentage of personnel costs for the department. These employees are the lifeguards, camp counselors, program instructors, horticultural crews, park maintenance personnel, and without them, the parks and programs would cease to exist. Unfortunately, as these starting and minimum wage jobs that have tripled and quadrupled in expense, while the percentage increase for the department has rarely seen an increase of 3 or 4%. As a result, the facilities have been closed, dismantled, or fallen into disrepair. And while the total number of personnel has been reduced to less than 1/2 of its size in the past 20 years. And that's before many of the park maintenance responsibilities were turned over to Public Works. When you add the costs related to the pandemic and the impact of the safety precautions and what they have had on the facilities that see hundreds of our citizens every day, it's easy to see the negative impact that a deficit budget will have. It is critical that the operating funding be increased based upon the minimum wage increases as well as the inflation for the cost of goods. The Rock Island Park and Recreation Foundation exists to support the park and rec programs that add to the quality of life to its citizens. It does so through financial assistance to those in need and through support of community events offered by the Park and Rec Department. For us, it is a labor of love for our community and the quality of life that our community provides. So we thank you for the opportunity to talk about our role in supporting parks and recreation in Rock Island. We would also be pleased to answer any questions or provide any support that is within our mission. We certainly hope that you would give consideration to funding infrastructure and staffing to bring the parks back to an appropriate state of operations. And I do have a number of our members here. I will mention who our members are. Darrell Empen is our chairman, Dorothy Beck, our vice chair, treasurer Jan Garmon, secretary Jennifer Miller, Board Member Frank Perez, Board Member Fred Dasso, Board Member Samuel Odemai, and Board Member Rod Leatherman. And again, I serve as its volunteer executive director. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I can also tell you about some upcoming events if you're interested in that.
I do have a couple of questions. Reading through some of the reports, and actually I had left John Grip a message. Has the foundation done an analysis in terms of, we're going to need about this much money to infrastructure this upgrade or whatnot? For example, I was leaving Whitewater Junction, wonderful time all summer. Leaving, I was thinking to myself, they're probably going to need about $2 million in order to just make some simple upgrades to get us through the next 10 years. I mean, do you have a plan and kind of a capital needs study that we could have in front of us?
They're specifically, not that we have.
Is that
Again,
not
that
the
would
foundation's?
that would really be the responsibility of the park board.
Okay.
However, there were plans to do an expansion there. That was going to be a splash pad that was a part of the park. When we were getting ready to do that, the numbers at the time just were not perking the way that we thought they should, and so the design work for that is done, but we were not able to bid that out and
Yes.
do that project.
Yeah, and so what I hear you saying then is that then the foundation's purpose then is to help fundraise for some of the capital projects that would come our way, in theory?
Yeah, they have, the board, the foundation would have the choice as to whether or not they want to participate in that. Primarily, they have been interested in doing things that are going to support youth activities.
Oh, right.
So that's why they were looking at support for the First Tee program at Highland Springs and the clubhouse, because again, that dealt specifically with that youth program.
Was that the meeting that I saw you at the South Rock Island Township with Reverend Ford?
That's actually a little bit different.
Is that part of the foundation?
No, that's
Oh, okay.
not. That's actually a different group that also is raising funds to help youth get access to park and rec programs. That's called Tri-Play.
Is that something we can go off subject on, or do we need to stick on the
Yeah,
foundation?
another time, but it's just real quick, it's a group made up of the Park Department, King Center, Library, and we look at what kinds of programs and where there are holes and what we can do to try to support those.
Sorry. You wear so
Right.
many hats in the community, I always forget.
I've got one or two, yes.
There you go. Thank you, Bill.
Go ahead.
So I was recently appointed to the park board, and even before then, I just have to commend John Grip and his entire staff for how they run our Parks Department and their creativity and innovation in meeting challenges, especially financial challenges, the pandemic challenges, the fact that less than 30% of the expenditures come from taxes and the majority come from fees is just phenomenal and should be commended, John, Bill,
Yep.
and the staff.
I can tell you when I have been at conferences and we tell our story about what we're doing, we actually have other cities that just tell us we're lying, and we go, we'll show you the numbers, because this is what it takes for us to make it work.
That's awesome.
Great.
Bravo.
There's no doubt. Thank you. And I know you obviously maybe mentioned it and I missed it, but you have some functions to help raise money. You have golf outings.
We do.
and-
Actually, I'm going to mention a couple real quick. August 12th, we're going to do a hole-in-one fundraiser at Highland. Also on the 12th that evening, we're doing a raffle for a couple of paintings that Mark Schwiebert did. We're going to be doing those at Schwiebert Riverfront Park during the concert. So we're going to have 3 opportunities for that, one August 12th, one September 2nd, and one September 9th. August 13th, we're going to do a hole-in-one contest at Saukey. And December 12th, we're going to reinstate, hopefully, our wine dinners that we have done to raise funds. So we try to stay pretty active. We don't raise huge amounts, but we are moving along, and very pleased with where we've been able to get in a very short time.
I think it's a great job, wonderful organization, and glad that we started it. And obviously encourage people to continue to donate to it. Think about even if they're in their wills and that sort of thing to plan and leave a legacy if possible to help the youth to be able to afford to be able to do some things that those that wouldn't have the opportunity is wonderful.
We've
Thank
got
you.
a great group of volunteers on the foundation. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Certainly would appreciate you giving consideration to what needs to be done also to continue
Mm-hmm.
things for the department. So,
Absolutely.
Thank
you
you.
very much. All right. The next presenting Illinois American Water presentation.
Good evening. I assume this will work for what we want to do. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay, all right. Good evening. Thank you all very much for allowing us to be here. I'm Randy Moore. I'm the president of actually Iowa American Water Company, but I wanted to come tonight to support our sister company on the other side of the river. We are extremely excited about the opportunity that could possibly come our way. We understand it's up to the council to make that decision. We understand that the council has to decide if you want to move forward with this opportunity. We understand that an RFP has to be issued, but we certainly would hope to be involved in the conversation. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to come to you tonight to talk to you a little bit about Illinois American Water. So tonight we've got with us several people that are going to be making little mini presentations to you. Of course, I'm here, Randy Moore. My picture's up on the screen. I like having my picture up for good reasons. Justin Ladner, who's the president of Illinois American, he's with us this evening. Eric Larson, who's the senior manager of the Western Division for Illinois American. Mr. Tim Leahy, who's the director of business development for American Water, responsible for the Midwest region. And then Rhonda Carter-Adams is the program manager for Workforce and Supplier. I believe Rhonda's online. She couldn't be with us tonight. So we're gonna just kind of talk to you a little bit about what we're here and why we're here and what we wanted to share with you. So let me talk a little bit about how we got here to where we are now. So on February the 24th, the City Council, this was in 2020, had a study session, and we were allowed the opportunity at that time to come and introduce ourselves. On May the 13th, still in 2020, Illinois American met with the water and wastewater employees and the ASME representatives. On June of 2020, the City Council established researching the practicality of selling the city's assets, water and wastewater assets. On October the 20th of 2020, Illinois American conducted a site visit to the water and wastewater treatment plants. November the 23rd, initial rate study was released via the study session. April the 6th of 21, the Rock Island municipal elections occurred, and Mayor Timms was reelected. Congratulations. Judith Gilbert and as well as Moses Robinson were added to the council. And then on May the 24th, an updated water study is released via study session. So with all of that that's happened in the past, here we are tonight to hopefully help you make some decisions regarding how you could effectively utilize the tools that are in your toolbox. And our hope is that we will be one of the tools that are in your toolbox. So with that, I'm going to give it over now to the president of Illinois American Water, Mr. Justin Ladner, so he can walk you through a little bit about Illinois American. Justin?
As he's coming up, I consider another milestone on April 6th. I was reelected to the 7th Ward, too.
All right.
That's a milestone in my life.
Thanks, Randy, and thank you to the mayor, Mr. Tweet, the manager, and the council, as well as the community for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. Just as Randy said, what we'd like to do is just talk a little bit more about who we are, and we want you to hear it from our mouth. That's why we're here. We've had different discussions, as you see, through this timeline, and they've transpired well over a year, culminating in this opportunity before us, and we're very excited to be here, and we really appreciate it. I want to kick off with, who we are. Bless you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of questions out there, and we've seen that, and we want to be very transparent in our discussion tonight, and we seek to try and answer those questions and create awareness around the opportunity that Randy mentioned, which is a potential partnership to really change the trajectory of Rock Island. There's a window of time we feel that is upon us, and we're here to share a little bit more about how we think that could occur. So we're going to start off talking a little bit about Illinois American Water. You're aware that our sister company, Iowa American Water, under Randy's leadership, operates just across the river and has been doing so for a long time. Well, Illinois, which I'm responsible for, has been doing the same thing in terms of a long history, just on the other side of the river, but not right here in Rock Island. You can see on this map, and I really want to draw your attention to that, all the different locations around the state, and it's kind of hard to see, but the white lettering, where we have service. We're talking over 140 years that we've been in service here in Illinois. And if you notice, along that western side of the state, several of those communities, and it's hard to read, but communities like Alton and the Metro East are situated geographically just like Rock Island. They're right on the Mississippi River. Surface water treatment, a lot of the same challenges that this community has, a lot of the same characteristics as far as the industrial history. And we've shown that we can be very successful there. We've got over 370,000 water and wastewater customers, and that's very important in terms of how we have oversight over our rates. That's a large customer base. We've got a very strong union partnership, and we know how critical that is here. Over 18 collective bargaining agreements, 9 different labor units, including AFSCME. And you can see that we're very involved in the community. That bottom picture, Mr. Nelson came before us talking about parks and recreation. I was sharing with him that that bottom middle picture is a recent ribbon cutting that we had in Alton, Illinois, celebrating the partnership we had at Illinois American Water and our foundation with the community, culminating in a splash pad that we just opened 2 Fridays ago, a place where the community could come together right on the banks of the Mississippi River, an economic development opportunity, as well as environmental stewardship. You know, the splash pad's not just a place for the kids to cool off. It's got a lot of awareness and education around water reuse, different ways to make sure that we're supporting environmental societal governance. So what's the big question here? The financial challenges. We've been listening, and we know there are challenges in play in terms of underfunded pension for your police and firefighters. You're not alone there. When I talked about that map and those different communities, we've seen these same challenges. It's plaguing a lot of communities. Some of the specifics, and these are numbers we took from 2020, and admittedly they may not be as current. I understand that even as recently as your last council meeting, you guys had some more information about the status of some of your pension funds. But you can see your property tax percentage is approximately 49% total revenue. The debt as a percentage of revenue is currently more than 400%. Growth of city debt per capita, so every individual, baby to fixed income retirement, has grown by 250% since 2011. What do these facts, these factoids mean? It means there's a growing challenge for the city financially to get a handle on this and reverse the trajectory. And we're here because we feel like there's a partnership opportunity to further explore water wastewater partnership with a regulated utility that may help stem this tide and reverse the trajectory, and do so in a way that's in the best interest of the city as well as the residents. One fact in that blue box that's pretty significant is the current pension fund deficit. In order to be made whole, it would require laying off all the police employees on the current workforce for 11 years, contributing their salaries. And it's even longer for the firefighters. It's 13 years. So we know the need is dire. So what can we do? How can we partner and become a solution that's constructive for everyone? Well, proceeds from exploring a potential sale can help you relieve this debt that we just talked about, to really get on the other end of it, to change the trajectory. Also, eliminate the city from having a very critical liability around water quality, things like cybersecurity. All of these things a partner would take off the city's hands. Adding new tax revenue stream, property taxes, how regulated utilities work on capital investment. It's very comprehensive planning studies with engineers that just do water and wastewater. And that's a two-pronged approach. That's being responsive and reactive to your emergency main breaks, for example, but it's also making sure that you're proactively planning for projects that need to occur so those emergency main breaks don't happen. And that's an expertise that we have. That's all we do. I showed that map, 140 years, over 1.3 million customers. This is what we do, and we're prepared to transition and take that responsibility. And then rates. We know rates are critical. Everybody is focused on that. And hopefully tonight I've got a slide, and I want to walk you through the oversight and the process by which a regulated utility has to go through in order to raise your base rates. And I don't think a lot of people have a lot of line of sight to that. And it's a very lengthy, long process that's got a lot of advocates and checks and balances along the way that's quite different than the municipality process. But first, I want to talk about an example where this has worked. I mentioned Alton, Illinois a couple of times. Down south, along the Mississippi, they too were facing significant challenges with their underfunded pensions. They too were up against the 90% by 2040 requirement. And their mayor, along with their council in 2019, made a decision to explore with an RFP what a partnership might look like. That ultimately led to a partnership with Illinois American Water. And you can see on this slide, this is an excerpt from an article, how we were able to help. The sale gives us the opportunity to get out ahead and help pay the police and fire pension debt and other city projects. We talk about the pension, but there are so many other things I know that Rock Island wants to do to really attract economic development, new residents, new businesses. Potentially a partnership that infuses the city with some proceeds could relieve increasing property tax pressures, which would help with both residents and businesses. And you can see here in Alton, they did some improvements with their infrastructure plan around the roads with some of their proceeds, and even created a reserve fund. And that's a partnership that we enjoy today. We serve their water, then we grew to also serve their wastewater. So this slide is pretty busy, and I'm going to talk through it a little bit, but I want to go over this because this goes to rate oversight and what the checks and balances are for a regulated utility. So how it works in Illinois, if you're a regulated utility, we have governance from the Illinois Commerce Commission, which is a 5-commission group that's got a staff of attorneys, accountants, water experts, with their sole job is to make sure that economically the regulated utilities are doing what they say they're going to do. What that means, let me walk you through this 11-month process of what it would look like if we were to make a base rate water increase. We would have to, number one, file, which is several hundred pages. And when I say file, we've got to put forth evidence showing that every cost we're seeking to recover is prudent and reasonable. And so all of those accountants pore over all that documentation, and then they also submit discovery requests. And this is very akin to a legal trial, complete to judges as well as consumer advocates from the Attorney General's office. So you go back and forth, you have hearings, you have every customer has an opportunity to have a voice in the stakeholder process. You can be actively engaged in it. That's the city of Rock Island. That's customers. You have a say in the process. And then a judge is given the case. And like I said, there are hearings, ultimately concluding with an order from the Commerce Commission within an 11-month time frame. So that's how long it takes to go through this judicious process. And by default, the Attorney General for the state of Illinois is involved and engaged on behalf of the customer. And that's large customers, businesses, that's residents, that's fixed income, that's low income, as well as the Citizens Utility Board, 2 agencies that from the jump start out really advocating for the customer. So there's a lot of oversight in this process. Then let's talk about customer service, okay? We know there are questions there. A company that's not from here. Well, let me tell you, I'm very excited that we have won back-to-back, 2 years in a row, the J.D. Power Award for #1 in customer satisfaction among large water utilities in the Midwest. And this isn't just regulated utilities. This is municipalities, Chicago, Louisville. This is everybody. And to do it not only once, but back to back is something that is a culmination of all of our employees and how much they care about delivering clean, safe, reliable water to our customers. This is our commitment. How is that made up? Well, we've got customer assistance programs, things like medical emergency certifications. If you're an individual and you've got a medical need to have water at all times, we work with you on the documentation from your doctor, and you will have an automatic no disconnect order. We've got a wide variety of interface options for customers with their bills, everything from virtual chats on the website for those that are super tech savvy and don't want to talk to anybody, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where we've got numbers for you to actually talk to a person. But then more than that, there's a local presence. And you're going to hear from him in a few minutes, but Eric Larson here is the operations manager that would be responsible for this area. And he and his team would have a presence here, and they'd have regular engagement with the community and the city on operations of the systems. Okay, and lastly, before I hand it off to Eric to talk more about some of the nuts and bolts of capital infrastructure, I want to talk about water quality, because that's the other thing. It doesn't matter how good our customer service is, rates, if we don't deliver safe water. And so safety and water quality are the two things that keep me up at night, being ultimately responsible for everything in this state. And I have confidence in that responsibility and that burden because of the water quality expertise that we have. We've got over 15 scientists on staff. Our national lab for all of American water is headquartered and located here in Illinois, down in Belleville. On that staff, we've got scientists working on a lot of challenges that are specific to this area, things like PFAS. Okay? People have probably heard about that in the news, the forever chemical. Well, with your surface water intake being the Mississippi River, you've got to do a lot of treatment to take that Mississippi water, run it through the system, and drink it out of the tap. And we understand that. We've got experience with it, but it's not something to take lightly. And oh, by the way, there's over 140 million chemicals out there, more every day, and only 100 of them are regulated by the EPA. We're focused on all of those different challenges, and we go above and beyond. The EPA, we work with the US EPA, Region 5, the Illinois EPA on their research. We actually help them because we know what we've got to do at the end of the day. That also includes organizations like the CDC. We stand behind the water that we deliver. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Larson, who's going to go over some of the specifics around the capital infrastructure here in Rock Island.
As Justin said, I'm Eric Larson. I'm the Senior Manager of Operations in the Western Division. Thank you for this chance to share. Really proud of what we do, and we've got a lot of important things to highlight to you about what value we could bring to Rock Island. So the Western Division, just to give you kind of a visual picture on a map, it's bordered by the Mississippi on one side and I-55 on the other, and then I-80 to the north and I-70 to the south. So I would be the local manager of this area should we proceed with some kind of partnership with Rock Island. It's no secret that infrastructure out of sight is really out of mind, and we see that reflected here in the grades for infrastructure, be it water or wastewater. We even know that there's poor grades for things like bridges and things that are in sight. When I was considering American Water, and the CEO at the time, Susan Story, she cast a vision about clean water for life, and it resonated to me. You know, and then I asked questions, then I joined the company, then I spent some years here, and I saw exactly what Susan was saying, is that we as a company were proactive with our capital investment. We didn't wait for a catastrophic failure. We didn't wait for that root canal to get really bad to then go to the dentist. We were doing our annual checkups. We were brushing our teeth and flossing at night. We were putting the money in the systems so the communities could rely on water being delivered, so there'd be redundancy. So there wouldn't be a catastrophic expense unexpectedly where you got to break the budget in order to care for something. And it makes me love what I do, and that I'm serving my local community. I'm serving my friends when I go to work. I'm not going just to get a paycheck. I'm going there to serve my friends. I'm going there to serve my family in the Peoria area, in which all of my siblings are in the Peoria area. I'm serving my family, and I take a lot of pride in that. And as a company, it shows what we do as far as investment. In 2017, we were coming alongside another municipality that was struggling with a lot of investment needs that were coming due all at the same time. They were looking at a rate study, similar to the rate study done here with Stanley Consultants, looking at a rate study, and they were looking at significant rate increases. And they had to ask themselves, do we have the expertise to do this? Will this be the end of the rate increases? Is there more capital investment behind this? Is this getting proactive, or is this just still keeping us in a reactive stance? They did decide to partner with Illinois American Water. And we made a commitment to be transparent with them about, hey, this is where we see the needs. This is what we're going to invest annually, and we'll be with you. We'll be coming to the city council meetings and giving updates. This is when construction is going to take place here. This is why it needs to take place here, for maybe fire flows or pressure or just an aging main that we need to get out. So I've been with Farmington every year of the way. I've been working with the city administrator, Roland Wright, to talk about where the investment needs are going next. What are we planning? So he knows, and with any projects that are going along with Public Works there in Farmington. It's been a big joy of mine to work alongside Roland and Farmington and see that transformation in their water system. Something that isn't necessarily system specific, but it's consistent across a lot of older cities and surface water areas, so alongside rivers like Peoria, where we serve water, and like Rock Island, is a high population of lead service lines. I believe right now for Rock Island, the service lines are owned by the customer, the resident. Under Illinois American Water, we would own the service line from the main to the property line. So immediately, the exposure or liability of any resident is 50% right away taken by Illinois American Water. And it's the portion of the line that's under the roadway, the street, that could be the most costly to repair or to completely replace if it's lead. I mentioned 2017 with Farmington. I've been a part of a proactive team removing lead in Peoria since that time in 2017. And we are taking the expense from the main all the way into the house. And we're doing it on a proactive basis. So we're doing an inventory like is required across the state of Illinois. We're all water systems are supposed to inventory our service lines. And we're taking that inventory and we're going after the lead service lines. And when we go to take it out, we're not going to just take out that part of the property line. We're going to do the whole thing all the way into the home. So in a partnership with us, Illinois American Water and Rock Island, there's a liability that's removed from the city and removed from the resident, going from 100% service line ownership to just 50%. And if you have a lead line, hey, we're coming after that. We're going to replace that. We're going to take it out of the ground, and you're not going to have to worry about that lead service line. Again, I just bubble with pride when I talk about this stuff and how good it is for the community that I serve and the people I know in the community that I serve. And I think Rock Island would experience the same benefit in such an investment from our company. We did look at that Stanley Consultants rate study, and it showed some significant suggested rate increases year over year. And at the capital investment at those suggested rate increases, it was between $8 and $10 million. We looked at that. and we look at our purchasing power, we look at our economies of scale, we look at our network with pre-existing engineers and operations within Illinois, at the same rate increase that Stanley Consultants suggested over the next 5 years, at the same rate increase, we project doing 5 to 6 times the capital investment over the next 5 years. So does your system need capital investment? And this is just kind of painting with a broad stroke here, United States water and wastewater health. But we project under that same rate increase 5 to 6 times the capital investment in the system. Refresh it, bring it to life, upgrade. So I think I'm driving here, so let's go to the next slide. All right, I handled it. Also living in operations, I live with our team. Our team is our backbone. They've got the experience, they've got the passion, they got the know-how. They're going to pass the baton to the next generation that comes in. We care deeply about our team. We care about their safety. We care about their training. We care about their security and feeling rewarded at work. In a partnership, 100% of the employees are going to retain their job. There isn't transferring out of Rock Island. They'd be employed here in Rock Island. There'd be a recognition of the union. They're going to do what they do best, and we need them to do that. They know the system. It's really us coming in with more resources. Again, I mentioned economies of scale. I mentioned the scientists. I mentioned the engineers. I mentioned the capital budget. I mentioned, the cost of goods and how we can purchase more for less. We bring all this behind the existing employment base and make them stronger yet with those tools. I brag on our guys. We've got a lot of engaged guys. In Peoria, our team is so engaged they want to do more. In the last 5 years, we've had 4 guys come out of the union field ranks and say, hey, I want to do more. I want to lead in this team. Scott Robinson took that bold step here recently under Lori Hortzman. Justin Williams recently with Ryan Krolicki, another superintendent, he said, hey, I want to do more. Al Huff decided to do that, leaving the field group and joined the engineering team and said, hey, I have more skills and I want to grow in this way. And he did it. Todd Brooks came out of the FSR ranks to work under me because he wanted to make more of an impact. He wanted to learn more and do more in the business. So there's great opportunities, and they come often for employees to grow, to take a different role. And if maybe a spouse takes a job in another city and we're there, there's an opportunity to go to another city with Illinois American Water or Iowa American Water. So the chance for growth with employees is big. The last one I'll touch on is tuition reimbursement. We have employees taking place or using the tuition reimbursement in every one of my districts right now, the large districts, Pekin, Lincoln, and Peoria. I myself took a part of it. It's a great benefit. It's there for our employees that they can grow, branch out, explore more, and deepen their knowledge in business or in water and wastewater or in water quality, engineering, et cetera. It's there at their fingertips. So I'd love to have the opportunity to tell you more about how we go in depth with our capital investment, how we partner with municipalities, how there's a strategic plan to it, and just the sheer amount that we do it for clean water, for life, for our customers. But I think it's time I pass the baton to Tim. So, Tim Leahy, it's all yours.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, residents. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you about how Illinois American Water can assist Rock Island by partnering with us. Earlier, you heard from Randy Moore. Randy Moore is the president of Iowa American Water. Iowa American Water has been across the river for over 100 years. So in a sense, we've been neighbors. We've been neighbors for over 100 years. And under Randy Moore's leadership and under the leadership before Randy, Brock Earnhardt, they've had successful, productive, and growing labor relations. The Iowa American Water staff, they're all represented by the Utility Workers of America, AFL-CIO. So right across the river is another union American Water operation. So Illinois American Water, let me see if I can do this right. Illinois American Water, approximately 450 employees. More than 300 are represented by labor unions, including the United Food and Commercial Workers, the operating engineers, the Laborers International Union, the plumbers and pipe fitters, the Teamsters, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and the Utility Workers of America, AFL-CIO, and yes, AFSCME in Jerseyville, Illinois. Illinois American Water, we're proud union employers. We work with our employees. We work with the business agents. We partner with them collectively on issues of safety training. You know, what we want is our workers to go to work hard every day, and then come home safely to their families. We work collaboratively on safety and people development while ensuring world-class service to our customers. So if you just, I know it's hard to read, but if you just really take a, you know, from South Beloit all the way down to Cairo, Alton, Illinois, has got the plumbers, the pipe fitters, the International Union of Operating Engineers. Belleville and East St. Louis has the Laborers International Union. Godfrey has the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Jerseyville, your brothers and sisters, AFSCME. In Peoria, they've got the Laborers International Union and the Operating Engineers. Lincoln has the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Sterling, again, the IBEW, International Union of Electrical Workers. Champaign-Urbana has the Utility Workers of America, AFL-CIO. When we talk about benefits, health and welfare, our benefits are negotiated nationally every 5 years under what's called the National Health Benefits negotiations. Those benefits, what we call National Benefits Agreement, is a comprehensive benefits package negotiated between American Water and a coalition of the unions. Some of these largest unions that are part of this coalition that we bargain with would be the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the Operating Engineers, the Laborers International Union, the United Food and Commercial Workers, the Service Employees International Union. They make up this coalition that we bargain with every 5 years for health and welfare, financial, medical, dental, the whole 9 yards. So we take benefits and we taking care of our employees very seriously. And I know in the last year and a half, the issue of pensions has come up. What's going to happen to my pension? And from Justin to Eric to Randy, Frank, all of us, if we were in your shoes, we'd have the same questions. We care deeply about this pension issue to make sure the employees, that they're taken care of financially today and in the future for themselves and their dependents. But the concerns they have, this isn't new. When we acquired Alton Wastewater, the Teamsters, those workers had the same concerns, the same questions. In Jerseyville, those workers, they had the same questions about my pension. What's going to happen? So we understand this, and we're very sensitive to this issue. But what we did in both those communities, working with the union leadership, working with our HR department, and working with the city, and working with the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, the IMRF. Together, we worked with them so to make sure all the employees' questions were answered and that they were given the options how to advance what's best for them moving forward. As a matter of fact, the IMRF sent out individual representatives to meet with every employee to answer the questions and their options. So again, we understand their concerns, And we'd have the same questions and concerns. But through the collective bargaining process and meeting with the IMRF, we were able to negotiate successful contracts in both those communities, and those contracts were ratified unanimously. And as like any contract negotiations, did we get everything we want? No. Did the union get everything they wanted? No. But collectively, we came to an agreement that was ratified. Last, I'd like to just touch on an issue called the Systems Viability Act. That's the law. In 2013, Governor Quinn signed the Systems Viability Act, which creates the framework that investor-owned utilities and municipalities and the Illinois Commerce Commission, it creates the framework that we have to operate in to successfully acquire a municipal's water and wastewater systems. One of the key provisions of that law has to do with project labor agreements. And I know it's a key provision because we pushed to put this in the law. So anytime in the state of Illinois, if an investor-owned water utility acquires a water or wastewater system, municipal system, they have to utilize project labor agreements, PLAs. And the language says, and I'll quote, any contractor or subcontractor that performs work on a water or sewer utility acquired by a large public utility under this section shall be, one, a responsible bidder as described in section 3022 of the Illinois Procurement Code, and that contract subcontractor shall submit evidence of meeting the requirements to be a responsible bidder as described in section 3022 to the water or sewer utility. Any new water or sewer facility built as a result of the acquisition shall require a contractor to enter into a project labor agreement. And finally, the large public utility acquiring the water or sewer utility shall offer employee positions to qualified employees of the acquired water utility. No one's going to lose their job. And we proudly support PLAs because the union construction, the trade unions and their contractors, they have apprenticeship programs. And those apprenticeship programs hire locally. They bring in young men and women that don't want to go to college, but they want a good, productive career that they can earn for themselves and a family today and in the future. So we proudly work with the operating engineers, the laborers, the carpenters, the plumbers, pipe fitters, because one, safety is preeminent for them, the highest quality construction craftsmanship, but also their apprenticeship programs that help local youth. That's where they bring in folks for their apprenticeship programs. So we care deeply about this. I'm going to turn it over now to, and I think she's visual, Rhonda Carter Adams she's the manager of Illinois American Water's Inclusion and Diversity Program. So hopefully we get Rhonda online.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm happy to be a part of this conversation. You've heard a number of my colleagues talk about Illinois American Water and our specific efforts and our intentional focus on building stronger communities. You heard Eric talk about working with joy and the passion that we feel and supporting the community. And not only that, ensuring that the communities that we are present in, our organization, we reflect those communities. And I know it sounds like a cliche and feels like a cliche, but that is our mission. We want to reflect the communities that we serve. And that's where part of my role comes into play. I enjoy putting together and helping us develop strategies, developing our community partner relationships and that engagement that kind of marries the work that we're doing within the community. Now, with the economic and impact through supplier diversity, I wanted to kind of mention a few things that we focus on. Illinois American Water, for the past 5 years, our journey in making sure that we find and locate diverse businesses, very intentional. We went from a meager, maybe like 3-4% of our business opportunities contracts with diverse suppliers to almost 30% last year. We spent $57 million of the products and services that we procure and purchase were with diverse businesses. And that's a direct focus on, our intent to ensure that we're engaging businesses within the state of Illinois, and not only the state, our region, and our local facilities. I'm not sure if you can see my slide per se, but one of the things I wanted to showcase was our relationships with community partners that present to us business owners that are diverse, minority, women, veteran-owned businesses. They come to us through our advocacy partnerships, right? And so one of our key relationships in one of our specific regions that Eric manages, we were able to find some sustainable, long-lasting partnerships with minority businesses through our community advocacy groups. And not only that, why does that mean so much to us? When diverse firms get business opportunities, they hire diverse talent, and that's exactly what we're about. We want you to know that there are opportunities for us to hear and listen across all the wards, opportunities for us to hire good, diverse talent, no matter, what that trade or opportunity or skill set is. We really want to come in and listen and understand. Many of the facilities that support our business throughout the state, they are surrounded with opportunities that were brought forth through community partners that led to contracts and sustainable relationships. There we go. I can see the image now. So thank you so much for that. How do we go about finding these opportunities? We rely on the community. We partner with the local chambers. We have outreach events. That's that bottom photo there. We have outreach events with those advocacy partners. For example, like the NAACP, they have a program. I'll talk a little bit about that in a sec, about how we use their student talent as well. But again, ensuring that you really understand our intent and our mission in partnering with our community. If you can go to the next slide for a second, I want to talk a little bit more about how those partnerships materialize and realize into the work that we do. Now, a lot of the effort that we do with the community is reaching out and engaging organizations, for example, to name a few, the state of Illinois. We partner with Jackie Joyner Kersey Foundation, for example, down here. She services students K through 12, right? And a lot of that effort that we put into that is to kind of build up that talent for possible opportunities in the future to become team members of Illinois American Waters and leaders right here in their own spaces, in their own community. We work to ensure that the charitable foundations, for example, that we provide support the programming of those local organizations, those very local organizations. So again, very intentional in participating in their workforce development programs. You heard Tim talk about apprenticeship programs, opportunities to provide intern programs, working with organizations like the Urban League. So there are a number of organizations and advocacy groups that have recognized us, and not to toot our horn or anything like that. I just wanted to list a few examples you see there on those very local partnerships that we have that have materialized into student opportunities, youth development opportunities, education and awareness. For example, bringing in, if you can go to the next slide, kind of segues into some of the learning opportunities that we provide with our partners in the community. I think you heard Eric talk a little bit about kind of like that transformation of that cloudy water into that clear drinkable water. Oh, one of the things that the students in the community here loves is our mobile education trailer. And that's an opportunity for them to see firsthand what we do, right? Because students they're really not, really in tune with that, their drinking water. But when they see demonstrations such as this, when they are allowed opportunities to work directly with our suppliers, that's an example of a photo with students with our suppliers that actually perform work in our business, that brings it to life. Now they're becoming more attuned to how we are an advocate for them in the community, right? And we want to continue to be that voice for them. And I don't want to prolong the conversation, but our work with the East St. Louis branch, their students, where we celebrate their accomplishments in math and science and the arts, we support them. We sponsor them nationally, annually, and they come back with national prizes and recognition because our people have invested and mentored, and we judge them at their competitions, and we make it a family affair. My husband joins me in going to those events and partnering with the community. So I know I'm a little bit above my time, but I wanted to make sure that when it comes to ensuring that being inclusive and building that respectful culture, that is absolutely a strategy of ours. We only work with suppliers who embody those core values that we have as well. So I'm happy to talk to anyone about the plethora of relationships that we have and how we collaborate and work together when it comes to hiring diverse talent right here in our community and contracting with diverse businesses right there in our local community. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Rhonda. So I'm gonna wrap us up, and we appreciate everybody, the patience, the time you've given us. We've had a lot of different people talking, covering a wide range of material. And our goal here was to just shed some light on the governance and how a regulated utility operates and how it can operate in a community such as Rock Island. And I think a couple of takeaways are we invest in our team members. No team member is left behind. In this instance, no team member is going to be relocated. We need the expertise. You heard Eric Larson talk about that with emphasis. In addition, Tim Leahy talked about the Systems Viability Act. Legal law around the framework of a partnership like this requires employment to be retained. But I want to share that we've also done partnerships outside of that legal framework, and we still 100% retain all the employees. That's who we are. There's a reason for it. They've got so much expertise. We want them to come in and have the experience that Eric talked about, the ability to grow. We invest in our communities as well. Rhonda talked about that. I shared about the splash pad. All wards, all demographics, no one is left behind. We serve the entire community. We talked about rates, the governance around that. We tried to hit on some of the big questions. But to wrap us up, what we're asking is there's an opportunity to just take a deeper look and ensure transparency and formality around the process. Go to an RFP, flush this out, see what the opportunities look like. Obviously, I'm biased with Illinois American Water, but the takeaway is this could be a watershed moment, pardon the pun, for Rock Island. And in all seriousness, there's a window right now, and you have a lot of power as the representatives of this community to take a deeper look and see, is this an opportunity to change the trajectory of the fiscal health of Rock Island, and also absolve the city of very significant liabilities around water quality and safety, provide long-term rate stability, and develop a partner to help your community, which I commit to you we would do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time and efforts, and I know a lot of due diligence over the last number of months. So is there questions the council would have?
Yes. Whoever wants to answer this, I guess, just for the people that are listening out there and have just tuning into this whole process. I know you've been in touch with some local organizations that you've reached out to and gained support through. Could you maybe spell some of those out to the people that may be listening?
Sure. I'll, in general, categorize some of the different groups that we've received support from, and then Tim Leahy, who's been leading our effort, can certainly add more detail. We've engaged with the business community, Alderman Hurt. The Quad City Chamber of Commerce was one of the first organizations that we engaged with to learn about the community. We've also engaged with some of your larger local institutions, Augustana College. We've done outreach to them. We've also spoken with the Rock Island County NAACP, and that's an intentional effort to really reach out to all of the organizations, all the demographics in this community, as well as local labor partners. And Tim went through that list of all the different trades and the organizations. And then I would submit to you, going back to Randy Moore at the beginning when he went through that timeline, we've engaged with the employees of Rock Island in the AFSCME unit. And again, that goes to the transparent and open nature that we're trying to approach this potential partnership. Tim,
Okay.
other ones?
As Tim comes up, I'd appreciate if President Bonnie Ballard of the NAACP, did she ever send you a response of her support? You said you reached out to them. Could you get that to me? The Rock Island County NAACP, you said you reached out. Could I?
Right.
They must have
Alderman
sent you a response, or?
We did reach out to her, and we've had 2 different meetings with her membership to go
Cool.
through some of this content right here. And certainly continued that communication, and we'll make sure that we
A
forward
summary
to
of that response meetings would be great, yeah.
Right.
Cool, thank you.
So real quick, Tim, before you speak, so going back on the same question here, when I asked which, I know the ones you've reached out to, I mean, we've all seen different, a list of these. You've engaged with them, but I think everybody would like to know what has been the response with some of these local organizations. I mean, yes, you've engaged with them, but I think everybody, in light of transparency here, should also be aware of who's offered support for what you're doing here.
I would, Councilman Hurd, I would answer the following way, specifically starting with the Quad City Building Trades Council. They sent a letter to the mayor and to the entire council approving and supporting this journey. If you're looking for an actual endorsement letter, they haven't done that yet because they don't know what the final price would be. But they do support the movement toward an RFP, so the process continues. We have met with the local firefighters, local union. And all these communities, all these trade unions, they understand changes need to happen. And so, again, if you're looking for a formal endorsement, from the Quad City Chamber, from the Quad City Building Trades, the Operating Engineers Local 150, the Painters District Council, they have sent letters approving this process moving forward to an RFP.
And I understand that, and it wasn't to put you on the spot. It was just, I just think that we are aware of that, but I think that everybody else would like to be aware of that as well. That's why I brought that up.
It's a very good question, and we appreciate you bringing it up. Justin, is there anything else?
Cool.
Other questions? Judith?
Some of these are questions that residents have raised with me, so let's just dive in, okay? The line insurance program, would that continue with Illinois American Water? Residents are very concerned about that.
Eric, you want to take that one?
I apologize. I should have hit on that when I spoke earlier. Yeah, our sister company offers the same insurance program at a same competitive market rate.
Can I follow up with that, Alderman?
Sure.
What would happen with the balance of our fund? Do we have a balance in that insurance fund?
Well, it's in the, basically in the fund balance. There's a separate line item for it, our annual revenue there, but it's all in the total fund
What is
balance.
that at? Is that a couple million? Is it a significant amount?
Well, Mike Bartels can come up.
Because something would have to happen with that fund if we don't have it anymore, if it has a positive
Well,
balance in it.
Well, we would keep, that's all our money at that point. I mean,
Well, it's the residents' money who paid into the insurance program's money.
What I'm saying is it's all in the water fund or the sewer fund.
But what would happen to that fund balance?
It depends what the council wants to do with it.
What is the
It's
fund?
part of the RFP. When you develop the RFP, you then spell it out, whether that would stay or go, refunded. You could spell that out in different ways in the RFP.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it would be cool to know what that fund balance is, if it's a significant amount or not. Thanks. Oh, you don't have to answer now. You can get back to me. Yeah.
So, another question, a lot of residents will post online about complaints about the customer service. And so when the systems are publicly owned, residents have some kind of recourse. They call their alderman. So what recourse would a resident have if the customer service wasn't up to snuff?
Sure, great question, Alderwoman Gilbert. And there's two avenues that I want to emphasize. First is the conventional, which is the website, the 1-800 number, and things like that. But then, more to the point, when I talked about Eric, we have a local presence, and there'll be local numbers. And when we do projects, we put an individual's name with a local number on the flyers when we provide the notice to the impacted customers. So they've got a local number to call that can bypass, conventional customer service numbers.
Okay.
Then that also goes with the partnership with the city. I mean, Eric alluded to it as far as working with the city manager. If those conventional paths or a customer still wants to do that, we maintain a relationship with the city such that they could then point to a local contact easily.
Alderwoman Gilbert, may I add on to that question?
Yeah, absolutely, Alderman Polis.
With regard to your customer service and some of the research that I've done, some complaints have come across going through a call center. And have you or your staff done anything to remedy those issues?
Yes, Alderman Polis, fair question. And I would, standing here before you, tell you that we had some challenges, especially through COVID, with some of the volume that we experienced, where at the onset of COVID, there were settlement agreements that we put in place that put moratoriums on disconnects, which is in the best interest of our customers, but that radically changed call volume because of that. And we adjusted our workforce accordingly, and we did not ramp it up quickly enough when some of the normal service resumed. Now, since that time, we have learned from it, and we've incorporated some new technology as well as new classes of call center representatives. But I would say there's a backstop to all of that, which is our local office. And again, we want the process to work initially, but if it doesn't, those local contacts are in place, people like Eric and his team, and we make sure our customers get the service they deserve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so on your map, you highlighted different communities, but then when you listed the union agreements, there were other communities that weren't on the map. So how many systems are in the tariff district of that map?
I would need to research that and get back with you. We can do it. And for example, on how districts work, the Chicago metro area.
Yes, I noticed that.
Right, has 26 different districts
26, okay,
alone. Now, that one is
yeah,
atypical.
right.
And there's a lot of complexities to that service territory. The other ones on the map, are more whole, if you will, and not subdivided. But we can get that information and get back to you, absolutely.
I would appreciate that. So, with regards to rate increases, when you go to the Illinois Commerce Commission, if it were to go forward and the systems were sold, what are you anticipating to be the first rate increase? Because right now, as you know from the rate study, and we're voting tonight on these, it's 5.5% for water, 4.5% for sewer for each of the next years through 2025.
Great question, and I'm not going to dodge it, but there's a couple of complexities to the response where in the RFP process, all of that is absolutely borne out in detail as far as how that correlates to purchase prices and things of that nature, as far as rate increases or rate impacts.
So is that like something that's negotiable?
Your RFP, and that's kind of one of the big takeaways here, is the RFP is your opportunity to really create this process. And there are certain boundaries or guidance, and there are consultants out there who have done this for very large systems, who can help walk you through that. But if you've got high priority items or concerns, that's your opportunity to really put that out there for then a company like Illinois American Water to respond. But I would say, just anecdotally, those rate increases from Stanley, judging by the information that we've seen, the capital investment that's needed,
Right.
that's a challenge. It's a hard pill to swallow, but you've got to fund the needed investment to avoid catastrophic issues.
So you have to fund the $50 to $60 million investment that you feel is needed.
You certainly have to put capital forward with that. We feel confident that we can be very aggressive if you guys were to go to an RFP on being very rate sensitive in alignment with things that we've seen through your rate study to also be able to provide, to really maximize and multiply the amount of capital. And that's because of all of the operational efficiencies, access to capital, and other things that were mentioned through the presentation.
Right. So the capital investment that you were projecting, would that include the replacement of the lead line pipes?
Yes, that's a part of our capital planning and our regulatory structure.
May I have
with Illinois
follow up
Commerce
with that,
Commission.
Alderman Gilbert?
Yes, certainly.
Randy, what is our proactive plan to replace lead pipes for the city?
We don't have a plan yet.
Are we required by the same law that they're required to have one?
And Mike Bartels can speak more on that. There's a new
But get back-
legislation that's coming
You can get back to me
down.
on that. You don't have to answer tonight.
Some 30 years ago, we identified lead properties, and we take samples of those every year as required by the state.
But there's no proactive plan like they're saying. They have to have one to replace the pipes.
Only when we're doing, no, there isn't. Only when we do a repair.
Alderman Geenan, may I interject? So with the last legislature, the state of Illinois passed the law saying that by the end of 2024, if I'm not mistaken, all municipalities have to report to the state an inventory of all their lead line pipes.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you so much.
Report on it, but not replace.
Yeah, and that just came down, and so we don't have that yet
Right.
for you.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Okay, so for the past, say, 20 years, how many rate increases that went to the Illinois Commerce Commission were granted in the amount you requested? And maybe you don't have this right off top of your heads. And what was the median, not the average, the median rate increase? And what did that translate to for each customer in the tariff district? And does each customer pay the same rate increase?
Can I have the court reporter play that back for me?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
You can email
no,
me and
no,
I'll send you
Listen,
that.
these are great questions, and I welcome and appreciate the enthusiasm, Alderwoman. We will have to get back with you. That's a great question. I will say, in summary, my experience, rate cases, the process that I went through in detail, I don't think there's ever been a rate case where 100% of what was requested was awarded.
Okay, okay. So I know a lot of my residents are concerned about how the potential sale would affect the agreement we have with the Arsenal.
That's another good question, and that's something that you guys can be very prescriptive on the RFP. But that's something we've got experience working. There's intergovernmental agreements, things like that, that would need to be worked through. But another branch of our company is what we call Military Services Group, and that's just what they do, is actually work with military installations. There's also opportunities, though, for us, if their level of, their agreement of services with the community itself already, we can also do that as well.
There could be further expansion of partnerships, you mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So by any chance, have you done any calculations? Because I know you've studied our finances in depth. But do you have any, or have you done any research to how much the city would save in payroll benefits and pension liabilities if the systems were sold?
We have that offhand. I don't have it offhand, but that's another one we can get back to you on because it's folded into the analysis when we evaluate it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you know what would be the value in property tax payments to the city if the systems were sold?
You know, again, I can do ballpark, but this is RFP as far as, you know, competitive nature type, you know, information. But there's, I think, a significant revenue opportunity evaluating the assets that we have access to review. I would think in, you know, approximately $2 million, significant revenue.
In property taxes.
Correct.
Okay. So I think my last question would be, so why should the city council go ahead with an RFP to sell the systems when it seems that the majority of the residents, or at least the most vocal ones, are opposed to going forward?
Another great question, and I would say that us being here today to avail ourselves and try and increase some of the awareness around what it looks like to have a partnership, my hope is that that would tamp down some of that opposition through knowledge sharing, Alderwoman Gilbert. And we understand there may still be more questions, and we've got several from you in which we will respond in a transparent manner. And I think, you know, the RFP process is an opportunity to further bore that out and to see if some of those questions can be answered in a satisfactory manner for what your constituents want.
Okay.
But, you know, to conclude, we take care of our employees. We take care of the community. We don't lead from afar. We become a citizen where we serve, and we partner with the city and what the city's trying to accomplish. And at the end of the day, too, we commit that that water is going to be safe, that that wastewater is going to be treated. And we've got a proven track record to do that at the highest levels.
Thank you very much.
Mark, did you have a question? No, you're right.
I do. We have several large structures in relation to the system that we rely upon for our public safety, for the antennas, for the water towers, and that we also receive income from on an annual basis. My biggest, well, one of my concerns is that I don't want to put us in a situation where those are no longer assets, but now they're liabilities when the city has to rent our own space. And I'm sure that that's something that can be worked out through the RFP, but I want to make sure that that is addressed because, again, that is a significant revenue source for the city. And I'm not going to, I mean, it's, I don't have the exact number, but I know it is over 400.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were saying $2 million in property taxes if we do the assets.
So Alderman Polis, you know, public safety, listen, we're here to partner. You know, we understand the criticality of that infrastructure and your communications. We have a lot of experience with antennas on our assets. Again, water is what we do, our elevated tanks, and that's something that I'll point again to the RFP process where you can be very prescriptive and say, want to make sure that we still have access to this and in what capacity and even in terms of revenue. And, you know, the RFP process and, you know, subsequent asset purchase agreement is really where a lot of these different priorities can absolutely be reviewed and resolved.
Second question, if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor. You spoke earlier about meeting with the unions and with IMRF and coming up with an agreement that was satisfactory to the employees. I guess because the IMRF would not be covered under there, would they be selling out their, I mean, those that are vested clearly could maintain that. Those that are not vested then would be required to withdraw their money, or they could leave it in, and if they decide to move on, then go into another IMRF system. What about those that are in the middle? How do we take care of those people?
So
That-
Tim can walk through each
So if you're under 6 years, and you're not vested, the money you may have put into the program, IRMRF, you'll be refunded.
Right.
And then instead of contributions from the employer going to the RMF, it now goes to a 401K. And that employee starts to build a 401K with, from the company, and then a possible match if the employee so chooses. For those older employees, between 10 years and 20 years, it's the same process. That no longer, they've got their pension and it can build on its own, but there wouldn't be any contributions coming in. It would just grow on its own. And then for the most senior, 25, 30 years, that are almost maxed out, if they continue working with Rock Island as an Illinois American Water employee, they could technically start beginning to receive their pension, and then they also can receive their salary from American Water. So in a sense, far be it for me, I'm not a financial advisor, they would have diversity in their portfolio. Not just a pension, but a pension, a 401K. We have bonuses that are negotiated by that national health benefits to help the employees. But I also, just real quickly, Justin, just to build on what Justin was talking about, the RFP is a trigger that we can start beginning a full educational program to the residents. We have been talking with council, key stakeholders, but once an RFP is in place, that begins a whole operation where we would start processes to educate the public, work with the media, meeting with the media, community stakeholders, letters to the other, everything involved with educating the public about what we're about. That's what triggers from an RFP.
And to your comment there, so that we're all clear about this, the RFP is not a promise by the City of Rock Island to enter into an agreement. It is strictly a fact-finding mission to find out what you have, what we need, and will it be a good fit for the city and our employees, because that was the three things that I was interested in is, number one, our citizens, and number two, our employees, and number three, the future of the infrastructure in Rock Island.
That's a great point, Councilman Polis. The RFP, in a sense, begins the process of kicking the tires. What does this system work? There's no guarantees. It's just a request for proposals. So thank you for making that.
Thank you.
To that end, of course, the RFP has to be well thought out, well written, to take into account a lot of different areas, that whether we have to seek outside counsel, so to speak, to help facilitate that, because it's not something we've done in-house before. So that may need to be to happen, and whether there's an expense to do that. But it's a great, we need that to make all the decisions.
Well, would we be remiss in our responsibilities to the citizens of Rock Island if we didn't?
I think so.
In other words, if we didn't do this RFP, we don't know, there'll be questions that 5, 10 years from now, people are going to say, why didn't you? You had the opportunity, and you can either get the information and put it to bed and say, no, we're not interested, or you can get the information and learn from our constituents, which hopefully we're all doing right as the process goes, so that we can say, yes, this is a good fit for Rock Island, not only now but in the future. And I'm talking, I want to look not 5 years down the road, but I want to look 50 years down the road.
It's a permanent decision
It is.
to sell.
It is. Is there any other questions?
No, I don't really have any questions. I've gotten calls from my residents about, don't just focus on the money, and I don't think we are. I think, part of it, you got to look at, we're not a society, well, we are a society of instant gratification, and we need to, in this case, move away from that and look at long-term, as you said, 10, 15, 20 years. I would like to see financial projections on if we did not sell and we kept it, what would our finances in the city look like, say, 10, 15 years down the road? Now, no one has a crystal ball, so no one knows if EPA guidelines are going to shift to the point where, we have a huge debt on our wastewater system because we were mandated to upgrade it. You know, are we going to end up in a similar system with our water? You know, and nobody knows because, you know, with PFAS and all that, you know, EPA guidelines continue to change. So that is a big unknown out there. But I'd like to see what it would look like, you know, if we did not sell and we kept that, you know, what would be part of our backstop, I guess, had we, you know, clearly we would have to take out another bond for something that huge, several millions of dollars. But also, what would our finances look like if we did sell? You know, it is a revenue generator for the city, but how much revenue do we really bring in from that? How much revenue do we spend each year on paying off our bond debt? You know, there becomes that fine line of, you know, you're paying this much in debt, you're bringing this much in, you're paying for the product. How much profit is there, and where is that tipping point, you know, where you break even? You know, if it's something that in 5 years down the road, hey, the city's doing really well by not having to pay the bond payment, and the offset of loss of revenues has not impacted that, or do we find out in 5 years, even with not having the bond payment, boy, we're still running a deficit because we don't have that revenue. So I think for me, moving forward with an RFP would be the way to go, because I think that's when you can flesh out all those details and really have staff and everybody put in a little bit more time, because it is going to take time and it is going to be an expense to go through that level of detail. But I just feel like, from my perspective, for the residents of Rock Island, I kind of have to go through that due diligence and not just say, hey, no, we're not going to do it, because is that being short-sighted? But to get all that information, really to make an informed decision that's going to be most beneficial for most people.
I was just going to add on, I think Alderwoman Swanson makes a very good point about seeing financial projections if we didn't sell the system. So the current rate study is for an $8 to $10 million investment, which doesn't even begin to cover the replacement of all the lead line pipes. So how much would it cost the city, and how would we pay for $50 to $60 million of investment that would be needed in our water and sewer systems? That's a key question.
So we need I think it's important to have that information for the next decision, an educated decision.
Well, Mr. Mayor, it sounds like you have a consensus.
Does sound that.
And Alderwoman Swanson, I'll just add one thing to your statement, the part about the continued compliance and the wastewater mandate. One thing I can safely say is, going forward, there's really only one direction on that, and that's just going to be more and more compliance requirements and needs.
Okay, we are running close on time here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for making the trip and being here and the efforts. Council, if you got any other questions or any issues, and if not, we'll adjourn this and start at 6:45, regular city council. Thank you.
Do we have a chance for public comment on the water system?
You will have, there will be, if you sign up back there,
Absolutely did.
okay, then you'll have an opportunity to. We'll give about